Teal dear, listen, do you hear that? It's very faint, but it's there. That is the sound of crumbling narratives. Let's see if we can pinpoint the origin of that noise, shall we?
I was doing stand-up, just around the town, and I did a show. I was out with my friend Todd Barry, and we were doing sets around town together. And, I was pretty well known already, and we both did back-to-back 15-minute sets at this club, the New York Comedy Club. And he paid me $10, and it was a Saturday night. I didn't think anything of it, And we were outside talking, and Todd somehow brought up that he, mentioned that he got $60. He just got $60, and I just got $10. We did the exact same time, back to back, on the same show.
Except you didn't, did you? In fact, the owner of the club actually caught wind of this little speech of yours and decided to inform the world that you, in fact, had a different spot to Todd Barry. You were not actually booked in to do a slot at that show, were you? You were, in fact, doing a guest slot, weren't you? In fact, let's just see, word for word, exactly what Al Martin, the owner of that club, had to say. I did not pay you less because of your gender. I paid you less because Todd Barry was booked and you weren't. It was a guest spot, so I gave you some car fare, which actually is more than almost any club would have given for a guest spot. Funny how in your attempt to become a superhero with a noble cause, you forgot that little fact. Ouch. Busted. But the thing that really tickles me about this entire issue? Well, actually there's two things that kind of tickle me about it. The first is that you have tried to show that there is some sort of wage gap between men and women, because you're one of these people who's trying to show that men earn more than women for doing the exact same work, despite, of course, all actual evidence to the contrary. And the really funny thing about this is, not only did you fail to prove that because, well, you've basically just shown that you and he did different jobs, which is why you got paid differently, but I gotta wonder, that little car fare anecdote that club manager had there, I can't help but think that maybe this shows a little hint of female privilege. Because, most club owners wouldn't give anything to people doing a guest slot at all, and yet this man found it suitable to give you some car fare. I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that you are a woman, and he wanted to make sure that you would get home safely. Despite, of course, the fact that being a woman, you are actually statistically pretty much the least likely person to experience any sort of violence ever. But the bit that really makes me laugh about this story? Rather than simply admitting and saying, you know what, I misremembered, it was a long time ago, so on and so forth, and people would have probably said, yeah, you know what, that's fine, people don't remember everything that happens to them years ago exactly, forget about it. Nope. Instead, you decided to simply state that, my regret is that I mentioned Al by name. It should have been a nameless, faceless anecdote. So your only regret about lying to people to try and push a political agenda is that you did not lie well enough. You provided too much information so that people could actually corroborate your story and find out that it was not true, and that is what you regret most. And despite your pleas that this should not be used against working women in any capacity, it absolutely is going to be. The reason being, this is just one further piece of evidence that this supposed wage gap doesn't exist, that this 77 cents to every dollar myth is just that, a myth. And isn't it funny that after removing all variables, the only sorts of career that show any sort of annual earning difference between men and women use nebulous as hell titles such as other white-collar occupations, other occupations, sales occupations, absolute non-specific fields, which I can't help but think that if we actually went in and broke them down on a career-by-career basis, we would find that just like every other career, there is no discernible difference. Because even in that example, sales occupation, business management, etc., you can quite easily find yourself comparing, say, a man working in, for example, a Ferrari sales garage, taking home lots of money in commission, to a woman working on a checkout at a grocery store for minimum wage. And it is so well established that when it comes to jobs that require negotiation for money, as you would expect in, say, sales or in business, men on aggregate do better than women at that because men are better negotiators for the salary, which is why Reddit has banned salary negotiation in order to ensure that women earn more and men earn less. Because fuck a meritocratic approach, we can just force you to all be the same. I don't know about you, but I can still hear that faint, distant narrative crumbling sound. I wonder where it's coming from. I think it's coming from the STEM fields. Let's go have a look over there. Ah, yes, the institutionalized sexism against women in science. Because all men in science will do anything possible to ensure that women can never enter the field of science. But where is that crumbling narrative sound coming from? Oh, I've got it. Right here. From a 6-year-long hiring study conducted in the STEM fields, which has shown that female candidates are favoured 2-to-1 over male candidates. And the really funny thing is, this study shows just how mainstream and prevalent social justice and feminist thought patterns are. Because this study found that women preferred divorced mothers to married fathers. As in, women are looking at other women who have been divorced and are sort of saying, oh, well, she must be at a little bit of a disadvantage. Better give her a job over the married man who needs to support his children. And this same study found that men preferred hiring mothers who took parental leave over mothers who did not. So if you are a woman who has a track record of basically saying, no, sorry, I need the day off because of kids stuff, you are more likely to be hired by a man than if you're a woman who says, no, it's fine, my husband's looking after the kids, or the kids are at daycare, or they have a babysitter, or something like that. I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that if a man doesn't hire a woman because she has kids and because she needs to take time off, he is so shit scared of being called sexist that they are going out of their way to specifically hire women who are not as able or not as organized to be able to juggle a career and family life, instead of women who actually are organized or actually are able to manage their time more effectively. But yeah, women are totally discriminated against in the workplace. In fact, they are totally discriminated against in STEM. They're not welcome there at all. And women are absolutely punished for having children, despite all evidence to the contrary. But you know, I can still hear that crumbling sound somewhere. I think it's coming from the world of gaming. Let's go over there and see what we can see. Ah, yes, of course, sexism in video games. Quite the hot topic and rather profitable these days. Now, I'm sure many people out there will remember that a few years ago there were massive campaigns telling us that video games cause violence, and that people then conducted dozens of studies, and it was always found that this claim was absolutely groundless and total nonsense. Well, now it's all about misogyny, isn't it? Same pie, different crust. Video games apparently cause people to think violent things and act violently, but only towards women somehow. And we've been told this for a while now. And everyone who remembers the video games cause violence nonsense has looked at this issue and said, yeah, no, this is basically the exact same thing, and it is equally bullshit. But this has not stopped people from claiming that it's true and making rather large amounts of money off of it. But where is the sound of the crumbling narrative? I can hear it and it's very nearby. Ah, here it is. New study finds no link between gaming and sexist attitudes. A study by the name of Sexist Games equals Sexist Gamers, a longitudinal study on the relationship between video game use and sexist attitudes. A 3-year-long study that has found that controlling for age and education, it was found that sexist attitudes measured with a brief scale assessing beliefs about gender roles in society, were not related to the amount of video game use or preference for specific genres for both female and male players. Now, before we all get too excited about this study, I would like to point out a couple of little caveats to it. First of all, it was only conducted in Germany and therefore does not necessarily apply universally to everyone everywhere. Secondly, this study was only conducted on people 14 years of age and older, so it doesn't prove that especially young children are immune to the effects of video game violence or sexism. Although if you are under the age of 14, you probably shouldn't be playing those games anyway because ESRB. And finally, because this study involved a wide range of people and a wide range of genre of video game, that further study is advised in regards to specific subgenres of video games. But with those three very important little caveats out of the way, I still see this very much as a pebble about to cause an avalanche.